And we're live. As per usual, going to give it a few moments until people start popping up. I like to think this is a tradition at this point. I take a big sip of water, kind of babble mindlessly at the camera for a little bit. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Geek Speaks Greek. I am your geek, George O'Connor. I'm clearly speaking English, but the Greek part I'm actually speaking about is Greek mythology. If this is your first time joining us, Geek Speaks Greek is a show wherein I revisit a different personage from Greek mythology, be they goddess, god, hero, or monster. Each episode there is a new character we spotlight on. We've kind of hit the gamut, really. You know, we've hit most of the big 12 Olympians. I know 12 is not really a number for them that really applies. We've hit quite a few monsters. We hit the big three monsters, in my opinion. Cyclops, Medusa, and Minotaur. We've hit a lot of the heroes. Some of the heroes are less heroic than others, thinking of you, Theseus. We've even hit a lot of minor gods and goddesses. We did a week even of characters that really didn't appear in my graphic novel series, Olympians, where I kind of live designed them as they were here. A lot of the show deals with art. I always do a little bit of drawing. Sometimes the drawings are really terrible. And what's really exciting for me is that you, the viewers, often send me drawings. So last episode was on Wednesday, and if you were watching Wednesday, I didn't actually get to share art because I only have two things. I have my phone, which I'm recording this on, and I have my iPad. On Wednesday, I was recording on my iPad because it was Super Assistant Nicole's birthday, and we needed to keep the phone free for people to call her and wish her happy birthday and such. So first off, thank you. A lot of you sent in birthday drawings, which I'll be showing some of them now. Thank you so much. But because I have a lot of drawings to show, more than I can possibly show in one episode, unless the whole episode is this, I'm going to jump right in and start sharing artwork. So, this first piece is by Renka, who is a fan. Renka, first, look how good this drawing is. This is from Atalanta, who was the last hero we covered on Hero Week. The only really, good hero, if we get to it. There, and she's pictured there. It's a great drawing. You can see her patchwork leather outfit. And there is one of the apples that was given to Hippomenes, her... I'm not a big fan of her lover who threw apples in front of her to distract her. But this is what's really wild. So... super duper talented, right? Oh, we don't need to see that. Turns out she comes from a family of super talented people, because here is a drawing made by, actually I don't remember if it's her mom or her dad. Atalanta was raised by bears, so here is a mama bear doling out honey to the little baby bears, and one of those bears is not like the other. Like, look how good this drawing is, and what a cute scene to draw. And then, if you recall, the end of Atalanta's story was kind of sad. She and Hippomenes were turned into lions. There was various reasons as to what they did to earn this enmity of the gods that resulted in that. And here's a comic that one of Renka's parents did. I'll read it to you real quick because it's backwards. On the top panel, eating out of a food bowl is Hippomenes. He is now a lion, kind of unattractive looking lion too. I'm hungry. What's for lunch? And then Atalanta as lioness, arms crossed, steadies him with a gaze. Why don't you ask your friend for a golden apple? Oh, sick burn. Amazing artwork. Renka and family, you guys are awesomely talented. Let's see some other stuff we have here. We have... It's crazy how much art I got from all of you. This is pretty exciting. This is from Joseph, who handily writes, age 8. This is a new medium for him. All of this artwork is made from fingerprints. So look, there's a Cyclops, a Pegasus, there's a Poseidon, this is a Medusa. Over here is a Hephaestus, kind of looks like me, I think. How cool is this? And, yeah, that's pretty great. Joseph, awesome job. I'm really glad to see you trying with some new stuff there, too. Let's see. This one is from Mishaya, who we've seen her work before. Mishaya is super duper talented. She drew Metis, the mother of Athena, who was Monday? Days don't mean anything anymore. She was this week some point. I think it was Monday. I don't know. Wait. Yes. No, it was Wednesday. I'm remembering now. Great drawing. Well done, Mishaya. She also wished Nicole happy birthday. Thank you for that. Okay, this one's a little bit of a deep cut. So Yehi is a fan from Korea who sends in an amazing amount of super duper talented work. This is a reference to the Aloadai brothers who we meet in the story of Artemis. They're twin brothers. They are gigantes, so they're kind of monstrous in appearance, and they're enormous. They're sons of Poseidon, and basically their height doubles every single year. And every single year they make an attack on Mount Olympus, and every single year the gods turn them back. But as they literally get double the size every year, eventually it stands to reason they'll be so big that they'll be bigger than Mount Olympus and they'll win. And furthermore, Mother Earth has protected them that the only thing in the world that could hurt them is each other. And there is a little moment in Artemis where the two brothers, here's them at the bottom, they're like, we would never hurt each other, bro hug. And then what Yehi has done has drawn the fates up at the top going, are you sure? Because, I mean, spoilers, Artemis tricks them into killing each other. It's a pretty cool story. I think I'm going to have to do one about the Aloadai because they actually feature into a couple stories beyond what I've actually just put in Olympian. So let me mark that off. Maybe someone remind me later. That's going to be something I do for another episode one of these days. Okay, here are some drawings of Metis and her sisters. This is by Nora. That's great. That's the sisters, if you're paying attention, that you see her with and when you first meet her in Zeus, King of the Gods, the first book. She's one of the Oceanides, so she has like 2,999 sisters, so that's just two of them. I mean, I thought I came from a big family. And then this is Nora's brother's Drake's version of Metis as well. His mother wrote to me that he was very frustrated not being able to find a crayon the exact same color as her dress. I think this dress looks better. So it looks like it's maybe like cornflower color. I like it. It actually matches the sea better. So well done, Drake. I think you did an excellent job here. Let's do a few more. Ooh, this one I really wanted to show off. So a lot of people don't necessarily draw scenes, right? I know I don't. I just draw pictures. This one is from Moira. And there we have Metis on the shore. And then we have in the sea one of her sisters, one of the other Oceanides. And way up here is Helios. So, Moira, thank you so much for sending this in. Like, I think that's the first time we've gotten a piece from me of art from you, Moira. I hope we see more, because that's beautiful. Okay, let's do a few more. Oh, no. Okay. This is from Eleanor. She drew a picture. First one, I would say that this first one, I mean, her mom says it's Metis. I'm pretty sure that's actually Hecate because of the two torches. And here is a picture of Eleanor actually holding, look, she's actually painting now. So something's going on in the world here today. You guys are trying out new media, and I love it. And here, see, now this one is certainly Metis because it says Metis huge. I am so proud of you guys trying these new stuff. Guys, by the way, I am sweating already. It's so hot in here today. This is going to be a rough episode. I'm going to be a wet, sweaty, greasy guy. Let's see. Want to do maybe one or two more. You know what? I think I'm going to have to end this now. There was one I was looking for. I can't find it now. I don't want to be spending... It's not the best thing in the world to watch me looking at an iPad, right? So, but I still do appreciate all the artwork I get. If you decide that you want to draw something and send it to me, please send it to me in my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. I see everyone. I love them all. I'll try to show them all. Some of them, especially when they're more, I keep saying this, and I'm going to do it one of these years, when they're more detailed comics, like lots of Yehi sends me, are really funny, actual full-page comics. I'm going to be posting those up on my Instagram so people could read them properly instead of me holding them backwards and just reading it to you there. If you have missed an episode and want to go and catch another one, catch an old one, go to my YouTube. It's youtube.com/user/George Olympians. All the episodes are there with the exception of the first two. Let's hang our heads in sadness for a moment. I've given enough time for them to surface and they never will, it seems. The first episode I ever did was Apollo and his son Asclepius. And the second episode I did was Hermes and his son Pan. So I'm going to officially announce here for next week. Next week is going to be a week of redos. Yeah, so on Monday, I'm going to do Apollo. And depending, I have to write up the thing, I think I could kind of fit Asclepius in with Apollo, we might save Asclepios for another one. Depends. I have to do some research into Asclepios' attendant mythology. Wednesday is going to be a redo of Hermes. And, I mean, you all know Hermes is my fave. I have a lot of things to say about Hermes. So, Wednesday, which is actually Hermes' day, so I did that on purpose, that's going to be all about Hermes. And then, I'm pretty sure Friday is going to be all about Pan. So, it's going to be a week of redos, so there will no longer be this, I mean, if you saw those original episodes, you have cherished memories of them, awesome. But we're going to redo them. And I've changed the format up a little bit. I've learned a lot more about how to do this. So these will be better. Those will be improvements to what's going to be over. But, jumping ahead of myself, this week, got to finish up. We're talking about one of my favorites. A character who doesn't have a super lot of play. I've put her in the book series as much as I could squeeze her in. And, well, I'm just going to say who it is. It's Eris, the goddess of discord, the goddess of strife, basically the goddess of causing trouble. I always like to qualify it that way because both strife and discord are words we don't really use. I think we know what they mean, though. Like, that was her thing. She basically, any situation you put her into her, she would cause trouble. She doesn't just, it's just like... we see a lot of strife and discord in the world right now. People doing things against their best interest just because sometimes people don't like to be told what to do. That is Eris. That is totally her thing. In fact, her Roman name was Discordia. Also, Eris was Greek, meaning strife or discord. So she's not one of those gods who has a super clever name. She's just literally the thing she is. It's you cause strife, your name is strife, but her name is Eris because it's Greek. Now, she is, in most mythologies, she is the daughter of Nyx. Now, if you watch the episode where I kind of designed goddesses live, Nyx was the goddess of night. And I was really excited to learn more about her. She's not a character who really appeared in Olympian. She's only appeared mentions. I haven't ever drawn her. But she was literally night. And people always ask me, George, who is the bad guy of the gods? Who's the evil one? And I was always like, there really isn't one. But Nyx might be. And it was really fascinating to me how there was this whole alternate family history of gods where she has this whole alternate family. We did an episode on her daughter Nemesis. I talked a lot about Hypnos, one of her sons, and another one of her children is Eris. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. I like connecting all these things together. It's been a big discovery for me. I mean, I knew about them, but to kind of explore these characters more fully, especially because I had such an affinity for Eris already. I should admit, I like Eris because I like to cause trouble too. I'm that guy. I mean, I'm the older brother of 6. I caused a lot of trouble. In case any family members are watching. Now back to Eris. In Homer, so in Hesiod, which, I always say Hesiod above all, he says she's the daughter of Nyx. A lot of times she's just kind of generated by Nyx herself. Some sources might claim that it's the daughter of Erebos and Nyx, but I like the idea of Nyx just doing it herself. Homer, though, claims that she is, he doesn't directly. Homer calls her a sister of Aries, which would make her a daughter of Zeus and Hera. Now, I've said this before, a lot of the stuff with Homer, he has some kind of weird genealogies. He has ideas that don't get repeated elsewhere. He's one of the guys that says Aphrodite is a daughter of Zeus. I'm like, I don't like that story. And I don't like the idea that she is the daughter of Zeus. It doesn't appear anywhere else. And maybe he's speaking metaphorically. And when I made her appear in Aries, which I have here and I'll pick up eventually, I actually talk about that. She has her big scene where she comes riding in on the chariot. I'm going to show you this picture because I'm very proud of it. She comes riding in on the chariot of Aries. And I call her his sister in arms. Because I feel like Aries looks to her as a sister the way many of us have a friend who is so close that we view them as a sibling. Like a brother or a sister. I feel like Aries feels the same way. Because Aries is a god who loves trouble, right? He is the god of war, a bloodthirsty war. He revels in chaos and bloodshed and just lunacy. And so who else is he going to hang around with? Most of the other Olympians kind of don't really dig that. But Eris is like, you're right up my aisle. So he lets her ride his chariot, okay? Now, in the Iliad, the scene where she comes riding his chariot, they're accompanied by Ares' kids Deimos and Phobos, whose names are often translated as fear and panic. Panic is maybe not the best one, maybe something more like terror. So let's call them fear and terror as more translations. And their names meant like fear and terror. And I want to talk about this for a second because there's this kind of, sometimes they're called daimones. It's a type of being that you see in mythology, in old stories, who isn't quite a god. They're more of a personification. And it's debatable how much they are really there, if you get what I'm saying. Like, they're maybe not so much like fully rounded personalities. Like Athena is a goddess. She has a life outside of doing what she does. Deimos and Phobos, and in fact, when I drew them in Aries, I kind of drew them as these like amorphous, scary shapes. Because that's them, right? That's one of them right there. It doesn't really matter who. Because they really only have that's the only role they play. They create fear and terror. There's other characters, like I've mentioned a lot of Prometheus Bound in this. And in Prometheus Bound, when Prometheus is being bound by Hephaestus, he's being aided by Kratos and Ba, which just means strength and power. They speak to Prometheus, it's Prometheus and Hephaestus. They're actually talking, but they don't really seem to have any ability or persona outside of just being the embodiments of strength and power. And it's very tempting to put Eris into that category, because her name just means what she is. She's discord, her name means discord. And she doesn't seem to have a lot of personality, at least as far as she goes in Homer. Now, the reason why I put her in a different category is because she has a very significant mythological appearance that's independent. Whew, I have to wipe my sweat off. That is independent of her appearances in Homer, of her mention in Hesiod. And that is her role in the Judgment of Paris. This is one of the most famous stories of Greek mythology. And to get to it really quickly, I got to give a little backstory. So there was this woman. She was actually, I want to say she's an Oceanid, one of the daughters of Ocean, but she's actually a Nereid, one of the daughters of Nereus, who's another god of the ocean. I talked about him in another episode. I have a hard time reconciling Nereus being the old man of the sea, and then Oceanus being the sea. Like, there's a lot of extra water gods. Why do we have so many? So she's a Nereid. She's the eldest Nereid. There's a lot of them, just like how there's a lot of Oceanides. And her name is Thetis. And she's very beautiful, able to change shape. She's very Olympian in many aspects. And there is, I'll call it a curse. There's a curse placed on Thetis. That if Thetis were to have a child, that child would be greater than the child's father. So maybe that's a curse, maybe it's not, right? Like you as a parent, you want your kids to be better than you, to do better than you. You want to your whole act of raising a child is to, so they don't have your mistakes and your problems, and you want to look out for them in every way possible. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise, right? But the thing is, if you're the dad and say you are Zeus, that's a real terror for you. Because Zeus, as we know, so many of these stories we've told in so many episodes, go back and watch them on YouTube, he's always engineering things so that he gets to stay king of the gods. If he has a child with Thetis, that child is guaranteed to be greater than Zeus and would therefore overthrow him. And he nearly does. It's a scene in, don't remember what book. Oh, it's probably in Aphrodite. There's a scene in Aphrodite where he kind of sees her and he's like, wow, you're really pretty. And he's trying to do his typical Zeus routine. And here we go. Here's the page. And he realizes the last second, he remembers, oh, yeah, wait, you're the one who I can't be with because your kid will overthrow me. Because Zeus is, he's a jerk. So Zeus kind of does one of his typical things. The same way he married Aphrodite off to Hephaestus because he feared her power, he feared Thetis' power. He marries her off to a man, just a man, named Peleus. Now, Peleus was a great human king, and their child of Thetis and Peleus was certainly going to be greater than Peleus by many degrees. However, nowhere near a god. So Zeus kind of took care of that. That child, by the way, is Achilles. That's an episode for a future day. But before we're jumping ahead to that, Thetis and Peleus have a marriage. Because Zeus played such a crucial role in this union coming together, all the gods were invited. and all the Olympians came, and even like minor gods and goddesses and people you wouldn't think would show up to a wedding. Everyone under creation got an invite, probably even Nyx. No, probably not Nyx. But but there was one goddess who was very specifically not invited to this wedding. Eris. The focus of our episode. Because Eris, into any situation, she causes discord and trouble. And if you're getting married, you really don't want to invite the person who, no matter what, is going to cause a scene or a problem. So, of course, she knows and she finds it anyway. And she shows up. And I showed in the book, she tries different things. And I actually got this from, I think it's Caluthus wrote a really funny account of this, where like she's like banging on like shields, and Aries is like, quit that. And like she's trying to set a fire, and Hephaestus is like, stop that. And she keeps getting stopped, and she's like all angry, and she doesn't know what to do anymore. And then she has this brilliant idea. So, like I mentioned, all the goddesses and gods are there, right? Eris takes a golden apple. Because, man, there's golden apples everywhere in ancient Greece. And she yells, "For the most beautiful of all!" And she throws it. And it goes flying through the air and lands in the middle of the field. And everyone looks at it as it arcs over. And then, all at once, 3 goddesses reach for it. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. And it's like, boom, boom, boom! Because by the very act of reaching for it, they've all basically announced, I'm the most beautiful. Now, let me just stop here, because I have some huge problems with this story. All right, and I've talked about these before. Athena certainly doesn't care about beauty. You know, I mean, she's not going to like, she wears a helmet all day, her hair is all squished down. She has a cape that has living snakes on it. I mean, maybe that's some people's thing. She's not caring about beauty. She's not so vain as that. And I have a really hard time believing Hera even would care about that. Hera is very beautiful and maintains this very dignified and stately air. She's very regal, very imposing. But is she going to get involved in a beauty contest? Even Aphrodite, who this is her whole bag. She is the goddess of beauty and love. Why would she deign to do this thing? To make it worse, this competition is going to be judged by a lowly mortal. This shepherd, okay, first off, the shepherd is actually a prince in disguise, but we're jumping ahead here. This shepherd named Paris. Why on earth would the 3 most powerful goddesses consent to this? And I even address this in my book, Aphrodite, where I have her handmaidens, the Charites. They're like, look, Aphrodite, we love you, but this, and they hesitate because like this is a hard thing to say to your boss. I think this is beneath you. And Aphrodite agrees. She's like, yeah, I agree. Like, to be judged by a mortal, this is ridiculous. This is childish. This isn't something I should be doing. But the whole point of this book, Aphrodite is the self-made goddess. She is the only goddess who is not related, unless you're talking Homer, directly by blood to Zeus of the Olympians. She is married into this family, and the second of her birth, where she creates herself, she kind of makes this split. We talked about this the other day, as a matter of fact. She makes this grand appearance and kind of rubs a bunch of people's feathers the wrong way. There had been a pretty established family dynamic going on in the Olympians. They're all related. They're a crazy family. And suddenly this immensely powerful goddess, arguably the most powerful of all of them, enters into this and kind of upsets everything. And like, when she first appears, she's not very politic about it. She's only been like a thinking being for like a few minutes. You know, she's like, her roots go back further. Watch my Aphrodite episode for more on that. And so she's always been a little bit at odds with almost all of the Olympians. And for her, she's like, okay, I barely have a place among these people these gods as is. And if I can't win a beauty contest, I'm the goddess of beauty. If I can't win, it's based on my charms and beauty, then what even am I? She has like a crisis of conscience. So I just want to be stressed. It's not about something as trivial as looks. This is about a power struggle between the 3 most powerful goddesses. And I also want to stress, this was engineered by Zeus. You know, Zeus, we talk about him a lot like he's kind of a dum-dum. He's crafty. The guy knows, when it comes down to preserving his own power, nobody can match Zeus. So Eris, by throwing this apple, right, she creates this entire conflict. Spoilers, I won't get into this because we're getting too far away from Eris. We're talking about like these other goddesses. Aphrodite wins. And this ends up creating the roots of the Trojan War, with the gods literally divided in half. with Athena and Hera on the side of the Greeks, and like Aphrodite and her allies like Aries and Apollo and Artemis on the side of the Trojans. It's this huge conflagration that consumes the Greek world for years, and she has her roots in there. So with Eris, she has this one super important story where she plays this real key role, right? So I feel like that does deserve her having a personality, and she makes some interesting appearances here and there in the Iliad. There's a kind of scene I really enjoy. It's a little almost throwaway, where the gods and goddesses have been meddling on the battlefield to different degrees, and Zeus calls them all down. He's like, you guys got to stop doing this. He's like, everybody's off the battlefield for now, because, he's Zeus, whatever. And they all flee, and at his side is watching Eris, the goddess of discord, who's kind of like, oh, shucks. And I moved that scene about. I actually made it the last page of Aphrodite, where it's actually her waiting excitedly for the fight between the goddesses that never happens. And she's like, oh, is that all? And Zeus is kind of like, just wait. But like the idea that she sits there and that's her whole point, is to create this strife. So I talked a lot about her. Now I want to draw a little bit of her. So if you watched on Wednesday, I talked about Metis, the mother of Athena, and I drew the world's worst drawing of the Archie Comics characters, and I basically said how, comically speaking, there was a root there. How I actually based Metis on Betty. I based Hera on Veronica, with Zeus being the Archie, right? There's another comic tie-in for Hopi. Now, this character is nowhere near well as known as Archie Comics. This is a collection of... This is actually my favorite comic book of all time. Not this particular volume necessarily, but there's a comic called Love and Rockets. It's for adults. It's about, like, adulty stuff, like relationships and life and death and love and rockets and things. There is a character, one of the two main characters, is this woman named Hopi Glass. That's her from behind. Let me see if I can find a picture of her. Like a good drawing of her up front. Hopi is this kind of like... Here's some pictures of her. She's this kind of somewhat impish character who causes a lot of trouble. She's got a lot of power beyond like what you would think for her frame. When I draw Eris, I'm channeling this character of Hopi. And that's why a lot of times you'll see her in like these kind of exaggerated poses. So I also like to make her eyes slightly askew. Not like she, if you look in the books, a lot of times when I draw Eris, she goes slightly wall-eyed. Because like she's just always, all of her attention is put towards making trouble. And when she's not actually causing trouble, she's thinking about how to cause trouble. I gave her very light green eyes. And the idea behind that was green is a color we associate with envy. And I don't think it's necessarily a part of her character that she is motivated by envy. But as I thought about her, I'm like, like the fact that she wasn't invited to the wedding makes her act up. I mean, there was no way out of that. You just don't invite gods to your wedding because either you invite her or not, she's going to come ruin your wedding. But like, it's kind of like, I feel like the way she acts out is a resentment because people don't bring her places because she acts out. It's this like kind of vicious circle. So I gave her like these like very luminous green eyes to show that like there's like this kind of envy and this bright energy behind it. I gave her like kind of wild, almost snake-like hair. Don't really have a reason for that other than it looks kind of unkempt and crazy, which makes a lot of sense given that she is the goddess of discord. Also, I just thought it looked pretty cool. And now, having gone back after the fact and designed her mother and her sister, Nyx and Nemesis, it's a kind of cool familial tie because they both had black hair, which makes sense. She's the goddess of night. What other color are you going to give her for hair, right? And I tend to make her physicality, her body, I tend to draw her as a younger god. I don't draw her looking like a woman. She looks like she's maybe like a young teenager or something. And again, that ties into the idea of that character from Love and Rockets, Hopi Glass, who even though in Love and Rockets they age in real time, so Hopi's like in her 50s now, but she still has this very youthful appearance and is very slight, very almost like she has the build of like a young, like a 13-year-old boy or something. So draw her kind of thin. Let's make her holding the apple. not someone who cares a lot about her appearance. And then her clothes, let's give her kind of like a black... Actually, I don't remember if I drew it tattered or not. I think it's kind of like in ribbons. And she is undoubtedly one of my favorite characters to draw. I have so much fun drawing her because there's so much personality you get to put in. And I like that she's motivated by this mischief. She's, you know, I often say how Hermes is the trickster of the Olympians. Like, he is, but she takes it to the next level. She's maybe a little bit more akin to someone like Loki in Norse mythology, where he's a trickster, but there's like a real hint of malice in what he does. Hermes very rarely does anything mean-spirited. It's like he's kind of like, he's more like, I've said this before, when I write Hermes, I'm writing Bugs Bunny in my head. I think of him like that. But she's definitely got, like, I mean, she wants to create war. She wants to create bloodshed. And I'll draw another picture of her just because, like, I think, like, when you're drawing her, it's so important to get, like, the whole body in because she's this manic energy. She's not a character I draw with shoes. I can't imagine her ever taking the time to put on sandals or sneakers or whatever. And no matter how you draw her, no matter what pose, as long as it's crazy, it's going to kind of work. I would love to do more with Eris. Like I said, she's a character I really enjoy. I mean, even if you look at the Olympians poster that comes with my box set, you can see, and it's actually in the piece of art I used to promote this episode. She's kind of sneaking into the family portrait of Olympians, and she's taken a little bit of Hestia, and she's about to set fire to the butt of Dionysus. And like, so like that, if that was like an actual photo, that's like 2 seconds before just chaos erupts everywhere. And like, that's kind of what I think she's a really fun character. I wouldn't want her to be in my life personally, although I guess, you know, if we think about her metaphorically, we've all had visits from Eris. But she is, somebody wrote, how can he draw legs first? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to tell you actually. You know what? This is a good point. Let me switch this over to Q&A. And that's a perfect segue for me to start talking. So the question was, how can he draw legs first? Let me first emphasize, this is not a great picture. It's a quick picture. It's pretty good. There's a lot of mistakes. I picture what I'm drawing in my head first, though. Before I start, I try to just take a moment or two just to really envision what the final picture would look like. And for me, just for that moment I pictured it, I'm like, this drawing, the most important aspect of it is going to be her pose, that I want her to be jumping. Because, like, I don't think she's a character who sits still very often. I think, like, if you were at a party and she's there, you'd always see this kind of woohoo person on the periphery jumping around. And because that was so important to me, I pictured her jumping about. I'm like, I have to do that first. I also do the legs first because, as you see, I didn't leave room for the legs here. I thought it was kind of important to show. She has these kind of skinny legs and bare feet. There's the one drawing I did of her where she's at Aries' chariot, where he's got this chariot covered with blades and everything, and she's actually got her foot up. It's like through one of the blades. Because, like, she's just, you know, people like that who put their feet in everything? Kind of grosses me out. She's definitely that person. Everything that is upsetting, everything that causes strife or discord, she does it all the time. So do we have any other questions here? She's a mess. I would agree with that. But Hera is Aries' mother? That's from Renka. Yeah. Maybe that's in reference to something else. Yeah, Hera is Aries' mother. Let's see. She kind of looks like a crazed Medusa because of her hair. She does quite a bit. If Eris were to start a war, would she regret it later? Now, that's an interesting question because I don't feel like she has a lot of regret. And I'm going to make some suppositions about her character. Remember how I was starting this off saying how, like, she kind of verges between being a full-fledged goddess with an actual personality and being someone who's just a metaphorical representation of a certain force, right? I think she definitely because of her role she plays in that one story, I think she in the Judgment of Paris, I think she is an actual living, breathing like person, goddess, you know, like with a personality. But emotionally, she's got some real problems. I don't think she really realizes the consequences of her actions. I think she's very rarely held. Like, I think if she were, like, she might feel bad if she got punished for starting the war. But even then, I don't think it would ever come around to she thought, like, I shouldn't have done that. She'd be like, why on earth did those jerks punish me for starting the war? Like, she's not going to be someone who ever accepts blame or really realize that she's doing things to hurt someone. For her, it's all kind of funny. Do you think Eris and Loki would be good friends? That's a great question. Man, I feel like Eris would probably be like, just because of her nature, she would be causing trouble with Loki. And I feel like Loki, he's a bit more calculated than her. I think he would look for ways to exploit her and to, like, cause trouble. So they would probably, like, at first be like, oh, hey. And then, like, within minutes, there would be something terrible happening. And I feel like Loki would do it on purpose, but I think she would probably have just created chaos in some way that Loki didn't anticipate, because who can anticipate Eris with her craziness? And they would end up, like, being, like, arch enemies. Although she might not take it personally because she is Eris. But I think Loki would end up hating her. Let's see. Do you remember Thanos with Shaggy versus Shaggy? I like trains. Oh, that was from a class I taught once. Somebody here's from the class. Hello. Yes. That was a weird class we had. We drew a comic where it was like Thanos, you know, versus Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, because, you know, Shaggy's super powerful. About your inner thoughts, is it photo-like or picture-like your cartoon? This is a question related to something that came up on Wednesday, where we were talking. So Mantis was the goddess of, like, good advice and counsel, and I was talking about how ancient Greeks, a lot of people, when they think, they actually think in a voice. They actually have words in their head. And I'm trying to explain something I don't have, so I might not be doing a great job of it. They call it like an inner monologue or inner dialogue, where, like, if it's like, the way to grab the water, they might be like, I think I'm thirsty, I'm going to grab some water. And I'm going to pick up the glass, and I mean, they probably don't do that. Or maybe they do, I don't know. And for me, I was sharing, I don't think in words. I think in pictures, and I didn't get as much into it, but I'll share a bit more. I think in pictures, I think in abstractions. And then the question, which was really great, do I think in like photos, or do I think more like my drawings? And it's kind of both. I've actually described it in the past, and this is also the way I dream. I describe it as mixed media, where some things will look like drawings, some things will look like they really look. Sometimes it's like a mixture of the two, like it's not quite exactly how it really looks, but it's somewhat sense like through my it's been filtered through my artistic proclivities, so it kind of looks like the both. Yeah, and then there are sometimes I do think in words, but when I think in words, I don't hear them, I see them. So, like, if I'm going to say a word sometimes, I'll actually picture it written out, like in a typeface or something. And as a result, I'm actually a very good speller, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And in order for me to remember something, it's very difficult when someone just says it to me. I will write it down. And when I write something down, I can remember it almost forever. But if it's spoken to me, very good chance I'm going to forget it. So kind of an interesting, I would love to have a discussion. Maybe we'll do it as an episode one day, just like talk about that, like a live chat. Because it's really fascinating to me. Like, I didn't know people did this until very recently. And I'll mention it again. Most of the people I know who are cartoonists think like I do in pictures, which is like, what? Weird. So weird. So Renka asked about, she was surprised to learn about Hera being Aries' mother because they're actually against each other in the Trojan War. Yeah, good point, right? Gotta say, unfortunately for Aries, he's not super close with his family. The split in the Trojan War, Hera and Athena are on the side of the Greeks, and they're joined by Hephaestus, Hera's other son, Poseidon, Hermes, that might be it. Because not all the gods are in this. In the Iliad, some of the gods don't appear. Like Dionysus, he's not there. Who is he? I don't know. Demeter's not around. Persephone's not around. Hades isn't around. On the Trojan side, it's Aphrodite, Ares, Apollo, Artemis, Apollo and Artemis's mom, Leto, and I'm forgetting someone probably. But yeah, Ares actually goes against his mom because he loves Aphrodite. So he goes with the woman he loves, the goddess he loves, over his mother. So that answers that question, Renka. Where do you think she would live? Actually, AJ asks, I'm assuming about Eris. There is actually a myth that accounts for that. I've mentioned a few times the Aeneid, written by by Virgil, almost said Ovid, which is the story of Aeneas, who is a Trojan prince who escapes the destruction of Troy and goes off to found the people that would eventually become the Romans. It was the Roman epic. And when he makes his visit to the underworld in there, because it's part of the hero's journey to make a visit to the underworld, when he visits the underworld, they call her Discordia because it's the Roman version, but it's Eris. She lives in the underworld, specifically on the border, like right on the side of Styx. So that actually makes a lot of sense for where she would live. She couldn't live on Olympus, and she'd have to be someplace like away from all living people. There's a lot of dead people there, but they'll forget her soon enough. So yeah, she lives in the underworld, which I think makes a lot of sense. But she lives on this side of the underworld. Because I believe only Hermes and perhaps Hecate have the ability to cross over the river Styx and back again. So she stays on this side of the river Styx, because that's beyond her abilities. Would she like Nemesis? Now that's a great question, because Nemesis is her sister. And sometimes sibling relationships can be very tricky. And I feel like she would be like the annoying kid sister to Nemesis. Nemesis is the goddess of vengeance, and she's also the goddess that was invoked to kind of keep people from doing evil things that they could get away with so they wouldn't do it. Like if you could steal like a lot of, money and nobody would find out about it, like your fear of Nemesis would stop you from doing that, because Nemesis was a bringer of justice. So Nemesis is actually really about enforcing order, right? Societal order, especially. Making guilty people pay. I think her thing would be like she'd try to mess that up, because no matter what she does, she messes it up. So I feel like she probably looks up to her sister Nemesis, because Nemesis is beautiful and powerful and ferocious, but she would just cause problems. So Nemesis probably tries to get away with as much as possible without Eris being around. That's the sad thing about Eris. It was like I was saying before. She wants to be invited places, but she doesn't get invited places because she causes trouble. And if she doesn't get invited places, she causes trouble. She's in this vicious circle of her own creation. She's always going to be creating trouble wherever she goes. It's her nature. It's her role. It's her job. And she just can't help it but do it. I'm confused. Haven't read the Iliad yet. The Trojans worshipped Greek gods. Yes, they did. So what we think of as the Greek gods, they were worshipped throughout the entire... Like, there was no Greece back then, really. In fact, in the Iliad, it's not... The Greek forces, they're not even called Greeks. They're called the Achaeans. There's a bunch of different city-states all around the Mediterranean. Troy is in what is now Turkey. So there was all these related people in this part of the world, right? And they all worshiped the gods in their different ways. And because it was a pantheon, meaning many gods, certain goddesses or gods might have more importance in certain regions than others. But yes, it was the same group of people. They all worshiped the same general group of deities. The term Greek, I mean, you might see it in some translations, but the idea of a Greek state, like it's like they were Greek-speaking peoples. That was the language. That comes about later. I still can't accept this picture verse internal monologue conversation. It's crazy. Okay, I'm just going to say this too. I mentioned this the other day. I think the way I think has to be close to the way people think at birth, because babies can think, right? I mean, they're not totally devoid of thought processes, but babies don't have language for years. They form it later. So the idea of having the internal monologue, that's got to be something that's grafted onto your psyche later. Whereas I feel like and also like we see cats think and dogs think, and we know they dream. Like my cat right now is twitching in the corner, hopefully because she's dreaming. But like they're not thinking in words either, right? They're probably thinking. We've seen like dogs hunt in their sleep. They're probably thinking in images. So I think like I'm thinking that's got to be the way thoughts started, right? I don't know. It's crazy. It's something we can talk about forever. AJ Draws asks, what do you think she, meaning Eris, would do with the Infinity Gauntlet? Wow. I was just watching that again the other day. That's one of my those last two Avengers movies. Like, that's just like, if I'm having a bad day, you watch those. Like, they're so good. I mean, come on, those are great movies. And I was struck in, what is the first one? Infinity War. How Thanos has an unexpected sense of whimsy. When he's fighting the Guardians of the Galaxy, he doesn't have all the stones yet. I don't remember which ones he does have. But, like, he makes, Peter Quill's gun shoot bubbles, and he turns, Mantis into, a slinky person, and he breaks Drax into blocks. I'm like, oh, so he's silly. Like, that's a silly thing to do, right? I feel like she'd do stuff like that. Like, if she had the thing, and she wouldn't, kill half the population, she'd snap her fingers. Everybody has pink hair all over their bodies. It'd just be stuff like that. Whatever the most annoying thing. Everyone's constantly itchy. Whatever it is she could think of, she would be doing stuff like that. It probably wouldn't be as bad as Thanos. She wouldn't, straight up kill everybody. But it'd be pretty annoying. Her brother, son of Nyx, is Thanatos, which is where Thanos gets his name from. If you go back and read the first appearance of Thanos in Iron Man 50-something, it's pretty early. He's actually said to be, they sometimes call him the Mad Titan. He's literally a Titan. In his first appearance, they've reworked it, so you have to go read an actual old copy, that changed it. But he's actually a Greek god. And his brother is Eros, Cupid. They are all these, the gods left and lived on Titan, the moon of Jupiter. And he's actually a Greek god, and his name is just shortened from Thanatos. He's the god of death. That's kind of a cool thing. Wait, what? Ooh, I'm not gonna say that one loud. Is this a Sleeping Beauty origin? Powerful being slighted by not being invited to the party and causes strife and discord for revenge? I can't believe I've never put this together, but this is, that is totally Maleficent, isn't it? It's totally Maleficent. Now, Maleficent is super duper cold and calculated. I don't enjoy the live action movies. Okay, good casting with Angelina Jolie, but man, you just took everything cool about Maleficent. She doesn't even turn into a dragon anymore. She turns her bird into a dragon. But the original Sleeping Beauty is it's probably my favorite Disney cartoon. That is a beautiful movie. And Maleficent is the best Disney villain, even though she's kind of straight up evil, but she does have that, she's slighted. And she does the thing. She shows up. Yeah, wow. What if, just throwing this out, fan fiction here. What if what if Maleficent is Eris and she's grown up a little bit? The stories we hear about Eris are thousands of years ago. Sleeping Beauty is only a few hundred years ago. Maybe she matured a little bit in between. That's explained the crazy powers. I mean, that's pretty funny. I feel like Eris would be on board whenever her sister was punishing someone, just not for the right reasons. This is a callback to the Nemesis question. You might be right. Because I was saying, she'd probably... It depends. So I feel like Nemesis would have to be smart about the way she shows her, right? She probably wouldn't explain what was happening. She's oh, this person's, this person killed someone and nobody ever found out. She would mess that up. But more if she, the guilty party. He's just having dinner with his family and something terrible happens. We're I don't know, they're eating a pig and the pig comes to life and eats him. And yeah, you're right. Eris would be yes, this is awesome. Now, she doesn't know the reason why. So I agree totally. That's from Astraeos 19. Good job. Is Eris like Puck? Ooh, Puck is a character from Shakespeare, from Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, he's the one who actually... It's him who actually says, Lord, what fools these mortals be, or is that Oberon? Oh, it's been a while. Yeah, she kind of is. She's well, I think I maybe even used the term she's puckish, which is... It relates to that. She's an impish little troublemaker. She is, I would feel... Again, I feel with Puck... Maybe it's just because he's been written by Shakespeare, so he's very eloquent. He seems to have a little bit more driving force. I feel she is. I've only played D&D a few times in my life, Dungeons and Dragons, but she's chaotic neutral. She's just pure force of chaos. I don't feel there's necessarily people like that. I don't feel there's necessarily a sense of malice driving her as much as it's just she has to be the wrench in the works of everything happening around her. Which is why I thought Astreus' idea. She would be behind chaos happening, Nemesis exacting revenge, as long as she didn't understand why. Because she's going to be for the wrong reasons. Once she understood why, she'd have to mess that up too. Here's a great question. What was Paris even doing near the wedding? So, oh man, it is convoluted. So Paris was raised, as often happens in Greek mythology, in ignorance of his noble birth. There was a prognostication that he was going to cause the downfall of Troy. It was right. So they're like, let's get rid of this guy. They did the old leave him on a mountainside thing. He's adopted by shepherds, and he is raised by shepherds. So he's just kind of there. He doesn't know who he is. Of course, Zeus knows, because Zeus knows everything. So when Zeus kind of engineered this whole competition, and it's in my book Aphrodite, and I do it in a way that's, you have to, like, I never come right out and say it. But there's a bit where, like, there's this competition, right? Like, the three goddesses have reached for it. And they are so powerful, the three of them. And they all turn at Zeus. They're like, you have to judge this. And Zeus is like, I couldn't possibly. And you switch to the audience, and he's, like, saying how he needs to find someone else. And Hermes is going, say anyone but Hermes. Say anyone but Hermes. And, of course, he calls it Hermes. Because whenever there's a problem, Hermes will solve it, right? And so he goes to Hermes. Hermes is like, what are you doing to me, Pop? You're killing me here. Like, you're going to ask me to judge between Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera? No, this is like doom. And he's like, no, don't worry. I got you covered, Hermes. There's this shepherd over in the next mountain. Go get him. He'll judge it. Hermes is like, what? A shepherd? What are you talking about? And Zeus winks at him and is like, just trust me. And he's like, yeah, and I'm a Cyclops. And he runs off and gets him. But that's kind of like, Zeus has engineered this stuff. Basically, Zeus engineered the Trojan War. The Trojan War is one of the last events that happen mythologically. It happens after generations after Heracles, multiple generations after Perseus. And Zeus the entire time has been making tons and tons and tons and tons of demigods. And the Trojan War was engineered to kind of winnow out those ranks. Because remember, he's very jealous of his rule. He doesn't want to mess it up. And the less super powerful demigods running around, even though none of them should really be ideally a match for him. But this is also, keep in mind, this is post-Dionysus. He's had a demigod ascend to Olympus. So he's like, okay, there's a new type of thing. This could actually be a problem. So he engineers the Trojan War. So, like, virtually everyone gets killed. And, man, read the Trojan War. Read the Odyssey. Read the things that happen after that. Well, I'm saying the Trojan War like it's a story. The Iliad covers, like, 10 days of it. But there's other accounts of the Trojan War. A great book to read, if you want to read about this, there's two by Rosemary Sutcliffe. She wrote Black Ships Before Troy, which was her retelling of the Iliad and the Trojan War. And then she did The Wanderings of Odysseus for the Odyssey. They're both great young reader versions. They're amazingly illustrated by Alan Lee. I have them both on my bookshelf over there, and if I didn't have to jump over stuff, I'd run and get it to show you all. Great books to read to learn more about those stories. Let's see. Who raised the child? Have I ever seen Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas? Eris plays a huge role. And wait, what? Really? Is this Sinbad? Is this... Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. So apparently Eris, the Greek goddess, plays a role in Sinbad, the Seven Seas. Is this the Harryhausen flick? Because I remember that there was like there was a Sinbad one where he fights the Cyclops. I saw it as a kid. I love that. Harryhausen's Jason the Argonauts is one of the best Greek mythology movies ever made, which admittedly is not a huge list because Greek mythology has not had a great turn in movies. They just don't do a good job with it for whatever reason. But Harryhausen's Jason the Argonauts is it's great. And like, so I wonder, is this the same one? Let's see. Actually, I just saw someone was thanking me. Oh, Rika, for a great episode. Can't wait for Hermes and Apollo. Yeah, I guess I should probably wrap this one up. Oh, it's an animated one, voiced by Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm gonna have to look that up. I've never even heard of that. Okay. A bunch of you were mentioning that. Okay. I guess I should wrap this episode up because it does abruptly cut off at an hour. So thank you, everyone, for joining me in this exploration of all things Eris. Well, that's probably going to be the title because I like alliteration. I'm going to put down my water and do my little signs. So if you do any pictures of Eris or anybody, really, send it to me, please, at email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. I'm sorry I didn't get to show everybody's artwork, but like I've really been slammed. You guys are just drawing up storms. You can catch this episode later today at my YouTube or any other past episodes. And then join me here Monday. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we delve into the first redo, Apollo. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all on Monday. Have a great time. Bye-bye.